All right, Earl Hayes, about 5'10", weigh right now about 228, anywhere between 226, 228. My last show I weighed in at about 212. Was a little watery. Conditioning has been my issue. At the first 4 shows, I did 3 shows last year in Grand Rapids this year. So putting in a little bit more than 4 weeks of effort is going to be a benefit for me for future shows. Yeah. So worked on a little bit of chest and shoulders today. I've been traveling, so it's just sort of more of a touch-up day. But started with, I usually do 2 or 3 warm-up exercises. Started with just some barbell raises, or dumbbell raises for shoulders. Sometimes I do them with supinated grip. Get a little bit more of the pecs involved. And I just sort of do that to just loosen up the shoulders a little bit. I felt that it sort of helped when I jump into sort of a pressing movement for chest. Helps loosen everything up. And then hopped into incline bench press, which is one of my staples personally for chest. It's probably the only chest exercise that I will probably do every single chest workout. Everything else will probably vary. I usually do about 5 sets on that. I'll start with either the bar or plate, anywhere between 10 and 20 reps for first set. Jump to 2 plates, about 10 reps. I like to throw in some pause reps. I'm really big on like John Meadows, time under tension. I feel like that's really helped add some mass on. I've put on about 10-15 pounds from last year. So I felt like that's been a big contributing factor, taking away a little bit of the weight and working a lot more on the control and the contraction of the muscles when I'm moving the weight. So, and then I went up to 275 on incline. That's usually where I like to stop. I can do 315, but it's one of those, I've hurt both my pecs actually within the last year and a half, and I have a little bit of a mental block with not wanting to personally injure myself, and the results are still coming with doing a little bit lower weight and just working on reps and just the variance of how I do the exercise. And then usually I end with some kind of burnout set. Today was more kind of pauses. Sometimes I'll work on, more of a slower negative and work on an explosive part of the movement coming up. So did that, and then went over and started to hit a little bit of arms. A lot of times I'll do an arm day. Of course, I've always liked just isolating them, but today I've threw them in on chest. But usually when I do arms, I'll go from a tricep to a bicep exercise. Usually about 2 sets tricep, 2 sets bicep, 2 sets tricep, back and forth. Started with the ropes, tricep pull downs. I really make sure to kick it out on the bottom. Again, sometimes I'll hold it for about a second, making sure really to hold my elbows at my side. Huge on making sure just the form of all my exercises is correct. I feel like that's just a benefit too for development, but also just for injury prevention. And then worked on some bicep hammer curls with the rope. I've always sort of liked those personally for forearm development too. Some days, on arm days, I didn't isolate forearms today. A lot of times I do like to hit forearms at the end of an arm day, but this week I'll actually hit it on back day instead. But anyways, went back and forth between the tricep pull downs with rope and the hammer curls, and then switched to one arm cable curl. And I usually make sure to, it's always been a favorite of mine. I feel like it does a very, I feel a stretch of the bicep a lot more.
I noticed on that move you were holding your chest, bud.
It's more of a, for me, it's almost more of a comfort. I don't know whether it's something that sort of just, it's the position that my body sort of naturally gets into in that exercise, as opposed to sometimes letting my arm hang. I guess maybe it's a sense of having more of a balance. Whereas if my arm hangs, I may feel like I'm going to want to sort of lean to one side or the other.
I got you.
I guess, like I said, more of a comfort, not necessarily I feel like it's beneficial. No, I do think I do try to do my best to keep my arm in line. Usually I'll lean forward. I try to keep my elbow in line with my leg, so I'm not obviously swinging my elbow forward and obviously isolating the bicep, as opposed to obviously getting the chest or something involved with pulling the weight forward, or pushing it forward, I should say. Did those, and then let's see, we hopped over. We did a little bit of, my training is very sporadic. I'm somebody that doesn't really like to do 5 sets on something, move to 5 sets of another. You'll see me a lot of times do 2 sets of one, 2 sets of another. Depends on the gym. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to have a pretty open gym today, so I can hop around and do a lot of supersets, stuff like that. So hopped over and did a variance of barbell raises with a straight bar. Sometimes I like to do those with easy bars, but I'll vary it up and do some straight bars. Usually I like to do more volume with raises as opposed to weight. I felt like that sort of helped my shoulders, and the AC joint has been bothered a little bit sometimes when I go really heavy on raises. So I feel like that's been a benefit, just doing like about 15, 20 reps on those. And then usually I'll superset sometimes barbell raises with single arm dumbbell raises. I'm huge on supersets and just varying up the different exercises. And then after that, we did some laterals. Another one, I've always been able to do a decent amount of weight, but I'm one too that I always want to make sure I get to the top of my shoulders, and even sometimes a little bit higher, maybe get a little bit of the traps involved a little bit more. And also did 1 or 2 sets of dumbbell shrugs. Actually, dumbbell shrugs are not usually the ones I do. I frequent a gym down in the Powerhouse at Ipsy. Is one of the gyms I frequent, and they have one of the machines where you just stack plates on the side and do shrugs that way. That's personally been one of my favorites, but like I said, varying it up and doing, say, dumbbell shrugs a day. You get a little bit of the traps involved as well. Also did some dumbbell curls for biceps. This was more of a volume. Did 50s, I think, for 10 reps of straight curls. I believe it was about 10 reps of hammer curls as well. Like I said, if I'm not isolating my forearms, I like to add in more hammer curls to my biceps. Whereas if I was going to isolate my forearms at the end of the workout, I wouldn't do near as many hammer curl type exercises for biceps.
What are your plans for either this coming year or next year, buddy?
This year, I'd like to possibly do the Central States or Western. Again, my issue has just been putting more effort than 4 or 5 weeks in. I've relied a lot on just the genetics, and I mean, it's been working out solid for pretty much since I'm about 16, 17. Up until now, I'm 26, 27 here in October. So it's been a steady gain over the years. This last year has probably been one of my best progressions, putting a solid about 10 pounds. So I'm just looking to, I've now settled to where I can pretty much hit the heavy weights. Even if I come in, obviously I need to come in more conditioned, but even if I dropped a little weight from where I weighed in at the Grand Rapids, I'd still be in that heavy weight, which I believe for my height is where I need to stay. So right now it's see if I can come in condition for one of those shows. If that's going to be the goal. Obviously, beyond that point, I mean, long-term goal would just be able to compete at nationals someday. Going pro, that kind of stuff is, you know, there's always an interest there, but you know, you got to pay the bills. It's when I've, you know, have a family, house, stuff like that. So there's priorities there. This has been always been a hobby of mine, always will be. You know, if you pick up sponsors or that kind of stuff, I mean, that's great, but that's not always something you can expect. That's where networking and getting out there, getting to know people, networking is very important.
And speaking of that, how can people, if they want to reach you, how's the best way to get a hold of you, right?
Best reach me. I actually have a personal website I put up recently, swolenerd.com. A little bit about that. I was actually a computer science major, very sort of a stereotypical nerd growing up through high school. Spent a lot of hours on the computer, gaming. I'm a huge gamer and stuff like that as well. But it's got to where I ended up changing from a computer science major to exercise science when I was at college. Decided I didn't really want to spend my life in a cubicle. I still have consider myself a huge nerd still. So it's a site to where obviously I'm looking to promote myself, but it's a resource that I send my clients to for. I have personal recipes up there, a lot of free resources, personal blogs myself, workouts and everything that are available to people just for informational purposes. So I mean, I believe we're in an industry where it's, you know, helping each other is important, sharing information. You know, it's, you know, putting out videos and stuff like that is great because I mean, not only can it help motivate people and help people learn, and But then also email address, ehaystrainer@gmail.com.
Facebook? Or
Facebook, you can find me, Earl Hayes. And also on, there is Instagram under the Swole Nerd as well.
I like that.
So, and yeah, right now I live in Ann Arbor. Possibly could be moving here in the future, but kind of unsure. Most likely going to be staying in the Michigan area. That's where my family's from. So yeah, but always looking to do a lot of personal training. I work down for Anytime Fitness actually in Ann Arbor, and do a lot of personal training there. Train obviously at other locations as well. I personally work out over at the Powerhouse in Ipsy, like I had mentioned. But always open to, I look to motivate, train, kind of information that I can share too, and even just people with just questions. I'm always open to, I have people that come into the gym, just members that aren't even clients. They just I sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and just any kind of information I can share. I remember being the guy when I started off being in a gym. I have a specific memory of a guy that was using 80-pound dumbbells and slammed them down, and I was very intimidated at the time. And I remember it was a 2-story gym, and I went downstairs because it was for me, it was intimidating at the time.
Yeah.
So now being somebody that some people feel like they can ask a question and get a legitimate answer. I'm very humbled by any time someone asks me a question, emails me. I'm always the first one to want to share, any kind of personal experience as well, because I know what it's like sometimes being on the other end, and helping sometimes play down some of those stereotypes that sometimes come with this industry or some of the people that are in it.
Yeah.
And that's why I said the Swole Nerd. I'm a very odd individual, goofy. I do things my own way. My training style is kind of random, but it's what's worked for me over the years. I always encourage people to figure out what works best for them. I think trainers and everything are very important. Learning from people that walk the walk and talk the talk. It's imperative if you want to improve, even for someone like myself. Even 10 years of lifting is minor compared to the experience that a lot of guys have out there, and the information that they can share. I think it sort of trickles down. A lot of people have, a lot of times your trainers have trainers, and freedom of information sort of trickles down. Yeah.
Okay, well, good luck, man, and we will hopefully get another one of these in as you get closer
appreciate
to your next show, and catch you when you're getting ready for a show.
Appreciate you taking the time for me.
No problem. Good luck, man, and have a good off season.
Thanks, man.